what people don't realize is that controlled remote viewing is at its most basic level, it's an interview and report process. That's all it is, you know. And that it's like interviewing somebody who speaks a different language. So it's not easy. And it's like interviewing a librarian who speaks a different language. So you ask a question to the subconscious, it goes to the great library that's, who knows what that is, the source of all information, comes back with the answer. And it does that very quickly so that, you know, you don't really notice a time lapse. But then it has to tell you the answer. And you had to get the question across to it. The whole trick is that the conscious and the subconscious mind don't speak the same language. They never will. And, you know, that's just part of the human situation. And so they talk to each other through an interpreter. And in controlled remote viewing, we use the body as the interpreter. That's why we say that controlled remote viewing is a physical discipline as much, every bit as much as a spiritual one. It's a mental martial art. And so in the beginning of a remote viewing session, you say, what's at the target? And you have trained your body to respond to the subconscious awareness of land, water, and you make this ideogram. And at the end of that first part of the session, the viewer can say, well, I don't know what the target is, but I know that there's land there, and I know there's water there, and I know there's something man-made. Well, that's a start. That gets you to the target. Then you move into the second phase of remote viewing, and this is getting your sensory awareness. So you're still using the body, only now instead of a physical knee-jerk reaction, you're going to start tasting the target, smelling the target, and all that. A lot of people ask why the subconscious doesn't just tell you it's a car. And the subconscious knows what a car is. The conscious mind knows what a car is. But the body doesn't have any way to give you nouns. It can only give you feelings. And so the subconscious has to talk through the body, and the body has a very limited vocabulary. And so even when the subconscious knows that the target's a car, it still has to let you smell a new car smell, feel the wind on the face, you know, or feel the feeling of moving rapidly and stuff like that, because that's the only language the body speaks. And so this whole interview through a translator process is the body is the bottleneck. And so so you have to develop a physical language. Now, when people first come for remote viewing training, we teach them terminology. You know, this is a session, this is an ideogram, this is a target, this is, and so on. But that terminology is not the real language that's going to happen. And that's why when we teach beginners, we start out 100 times, land, draw a line, water, draw waves, and such as that, and teach them a physical vocabulary. And we do it, it's got to be the most boring exercise you've ever seen. But it's made boring because the conscious mind says, I'm out of here, I'm going to think of something else. And we continue the exercise, and then the subconscious mind is drawing those ideograms, and you're getting your subconscious and your body working together. So remote viewing actually has two languages. One is the terminology that we use in sessions and reporting and all that. And the other is a private language that goes on inside of you that lets your subconscious and your conscious mind communicate with one another through the body. And that language is private to every single person. And it has to be trained and it has to be learned. It's very much a, a, a topic of language learning, only it's a different kind of language than you've ever heard before. Well, the fact is, like the Akashic records and the Matrix and all, people think that once they learn remote viewing, their mind can go get that information. It can already do that. I mean, it already has, the subconscious already has access. It just needs somebody to tell it what you want. And so the process of learning remote viewing, controlled remote viewing, is a process of learning how to interview your own subconscious. And then you say to your subconscious, describe the land. And your subconscious says, oh, okay. It goes and gets the information and comes back. And so it's very much like you're interviewing a librarian who doesn't speak your language through an interpreter. It's a complex process, and it has to be learned. I would tend to agree, but I would tend to disagree as well. The matrix is more than you. It is the source of all information. It's just that if it has information that you don't know how to perceive, then you have a filter, and so you can't perceive it, but you do have access to it. I mean, let's start out being really honest here, okay? You have a contract with the government for big bucks, and you're the expert in remote viewing and psychic spying. And a general or a congressman or someone who's funding you for the following year comes to you as the expert and says, where does this information come from? Are you really going to say, I don't know? You're going to say, comes from the matrix. And they're going to say, oh, well, we better fund him for another year. You know? And you know, the matrix is just another way of saying, I have no idea where it comes from. By the way, so is the Akashic Records. It's a phrase that says that somewhere out there, there is all this information. I don't know where it is, but maybe someday I'll be able to access it. And it's just names that we give for that body of information that's out there that includes information about everything that exists, will exist, or has ever existed. And your subconscious mind already has a way to get there. It just has no reason to until you tell it what information you want. Yeah, the remote viewer, okay, may have, may not be a nuclear physicist or engineer, jet engine engineer or something like that, and gets tasked to explain how the engine on a UFO works or something like that. And they come back and they give explanations. And the problem is that engineers take these explanations and they, at first blush, they tend to say, oh, that's garbage, because it is not explained in their terminology. And even if it were, it would be explaining things that they believe aren't capable, aren't possible yet anyway. And yet what happens is, an analogy that you gave before, if you take everything that exists and put a big screen in front of it and only poke a hole on those things that you have experienced, okay? And then let's say you have never experienced a waterfall. Let's say you've never seen a picture of a waterfall and all that, but you have turned the faucet on in the morning and stuck your hands under the water and all. And so I give you a target, and in that target, here's this huge waterfall. You have no idea what it is. What are you going to say? It's a faucet, because you have that experience in your life. And so this is a filter that adds to the problem of remote viewing. Somebody else will look at this and say, there's no faucet there, so you're wrong. But you were right. There is falling water there, and there is, running water and all that. And so we perceive, and therefore we explain things through our own personal experience and our own vocabularies. Every now and then, a word that is not within our vocabulary will somehow make it through all that maze of problems and get to your mind, and you'll be working a session and you'll come up with the word groomferfish, and you say, what? And so you write it down. Maybe there's somebody in the company that you're working for or something who will know what that means. Maybe nobody does. But the word made it through. And the word that makes it through like that is almost always thrown away because nobody knows what it means. And so the information comes through, but hey, the letter comes in and there's nobody here to open it. There's nobody here to receive it because it's not addressed to us, And that happens very rarely. Most of the time what happens is means something that is long and round and silver in some other culture or something. And so we know what long is, we know what round is, and we know what the color silver is. So we explain it in the terms that we know. If a viewer can come up with 15% of what their subconscious is perceiving, you got a good viewer. I mean, I would say it's more like around 2 or 3% of what your subconscious knows about the target ever gets down on a sheet of paper in a remote viewing session. Because for one thing, we have a thing called undeclared perceptions. You say the site has a human element. Okay, you pick that up, you declared it. And so then you say there's a person at the target. You pick that up, you declared it. But you say there are people at the target. You have just told me that there are people, there is human and all that. But it is so obvious to you that we've got multiples that you never declare it. Absolutely. And it's these undeclared things. We'll see, a viewer may see there's a tree at the target. In their mind's eye, they have the capability of totally describing that tree. And yet they say there's a tree and go on.
How about failing to mention that they're actually outdoors?
Oh yeah, that's another yeah, here's a tree, there are mountains, the sky. Oh, where are you? Well, I'm inside looking out a window. Oh, you didn't say that. Yeah. I'm outdoors. You didn't say that either, And so, there are many of these undeclared descriptors, and actually very little of what is perceived by a remote viewer actually winds up on the paper and then into the summary and gets to the customer or the tasker or whatever. This is, again, training. We have to teach people. You see a tree, describe it, And one of the things that makes a difference between a good remote viewer and a, quote, world-class remote viewer is a world-class remote viewer may not have any more talent, may not have any more natural capability, and may not have any more control over the structure and the process of remote viewing, but he's curious. He finds a tree, he wants to know about that tree. He finds a building, he wants to know what's going on inside. If I gave you the keys to the White House and I gave you a cloak of invisibility so that you couldn't get caught, would you actually go to the White House, go in and say, oh, it's big, it's old, it's important, it's political, and turn around and leave? No. You would have the keys, you couldn't get caught. I mean, you would go through everything, you know. And a remote viewer who is curious about the target may not even be as good or as naturally talented as another remote viewer, but he's going to do better because he's curious. We have several ways to pull information out of a remote viewer. One of the quickest ways is a remote viewer says, okay, there's a building over there. And the monitor says, huh? Oh, and that immediately focuses the viewer's attention on that building. And then the monitor says, well, tell me about it. You know, it's a very simple process, but the monitor can focus the viewer onto some part of the site if the monitor is curious. And, you know, when you're monitoring yourself, you go along and you say, okay, I'm, you know, at this site and everything, there's a building over there. Huh? It does it. It triggers that curiosity and it gets a remote viewer looking at details and details and details. And that's where the good information actually comes from. Now, there is a rule that we make, and this rule applies to a whole lot more than remote viewing. The rule says that a noun is a box that you hide things in. And so I'm going along and I say, there's something that is big and red and moving. It's a fire truck. Stray Cat or AOL, it's a fire truck. Okay? Between the word moving and the word fire truck, a viewer will get like 100 separate perceptions just as fast as it can go. They don't know what to do with them, so they scoop them up, they throw them in a box, shut the lid, and label it fire truck. And in controlled remote viewing, we have controls for just everything. By the way, controlled remote viewing doesn't mean the viewer is controlled. It means the viewer is in control. Big difference. The natural psychic is at the mercy of their ability. In remote viewing, in controlled remote viewing, the viewer is in control. But then we have a set of controls in controlled remote viewing where the viewer can open the box and one at a time pull out all those perceptions that came 1 microsecond apart from each other, can pull them out one at a time and tell us more about the target and get all those details. Well, it's very hard for a viewer to differentiate between the signal and your imagination. There are several very good reasons for that. And once you understand those reasons, they become useful as tools. Let's say that back to the thing with the faucet instead of the waterfall. When your imagination pops in, or some analogy or metaphor pops in, that came from somewhere, and you're focused on the target. Well, there is a kernel of truth about that. And so you have to recognize when something is coming in metaphorically. You have to recognize when you're saying one thing but meaning something else. because, a viewer will often say, oh, it's like a faucet, but not exactly. Or they'll say it's like a faucet, but it's really big, something like that. And so in their mind, they know it's not a faucet, and yet they have said that noun. So we make them put the noun aside, and then we make them pull things out. Oh, it's a faucet? Okay. Open that box and start pulling things out. Well, it's big. It's a mile away from me. I can still feel the mist on my face from it. Also, it's outdoors. Also, there's no silver thing up there, there's only sky. And so, one at a time, we pull these things out of the box and find out what made them scoop all this up, throw it into a box, and label it faucet, because faucet's the only word they knew. So, the imagination takes over, analogies take over, metaphors pop in, and all that. And in controlled remote viewing, we know that's not garbage. That's good stuff. It's just in a ball of stuff that's not good,
The nature of the information transfer.
It's the nature of the
You can't beat
transfer.
it. You have to deal with it.
You have to deal with it.
And that's where the art comes in.
That's right. And once we learn, once you learn how to take the proper tools and dig that kernel of information out of that garbage, hey, the information that comes out is great and it's accurate. Some of the benefits of controlled remote viewing are, one, it can be learned by anybody. You don't have to have the natural psychic talent and all that. And it can be practiced to expand, and as you practice, it actually makes you better and better and better. Some of the drawbacks of remote viewing is it has to be learned and it has to be practiced. And so that's a double-edged sword there. If you want to be a good remote viewer, which is generally better than a natural psychic because you get all the detail and everything else. If you want to do that, it takes training and it takes work. I mean, be totally honest about it. It's not easy. It's really not.
Perhaps above all, patience.
Patience, yeah. Those are the two P words that all of our students hate to hear, is practice and patience. No, don't say that. That's right. The connection between the conscious and the subconscious mind is the physical body. And we all know, that the physical body has to be trained. It has to practice to stay in shape. And that, you've just got to keep up the exercises. And when you're using the physical body as a means of communication between the conscious and the subconscious, you got to exercise. You got to do those ideogram drills. You got to do the work. You've got to practice sessions. And practicing sessions on locations makes you good at locations. But then somebody comes up and says, yeah, but I want you to describe an event. Oh, well, I've never done that. But, you've got to vary your practice. You've got to practice on all different types of things. Now, here's one thing that we demand: that you practice on things where you get immediate feedback. A ball player hits a ball, he immediately sees where it goes and sees what he did wrong and all that. And we demand that a student at least have targets that have immediate feedback and real feedback. That means our targets are real. We never give a student the Galactic Council headquarters on the planet Scooby-Doo or something like that, or access Melchizedek of the planet whatever, And I mean, there's no feedback on that. You may get all kinds of things and you may think that you got good information, but you can't learn anything from it because there's no feedback. And so we take real targets, and when it comes down to it, do I really care whether Jesus had a long beard or a short one? And I'm never going to get feedback. So I'm going to give you a target, something like, I'll seal a picture of the Taj Mahal or the Eiffel Tower, or even a party that happened in a restaurant, or a parade on St. Patty's Day or something like that. These are real targets. As soon as you finish your session, say, here's where the ball went. We show you the feedback, we compare with what you did, and you learn something from it. And I'm afraid that there are many people out there, instructors, who are not expert in this field, and they're selling themselves as experts. And when you go to take training from them, they give you all of these, what we call esoteric targets. There's no feedback. I know one of the leading trainers out there, who is bogus, gives you the moment of your death as your target. First of all, that's a horrible target. And second of all, when it happens, you're not going to be there for feedback, And so, what are you going to learn right now about remote viewing from a target like that? We always give hard, fast, real targets that you can learn from, that you can hit the ball, see where it goes, and say, what corrections do I need to make? Unlearning, when you come for remote viewing training, is multifaceted and is a big thing. For one thing, no matter how much we tell people there's no magic involved here, that it's all science, they come expecting magic. We have to teach them, we have to unlearn that expectation, destroy the expectation. But what we replace it with is success. And that's always a whole lot more fascinating, a whole lot better for people. So that's one place of unlearning and then reteaching. Another place of unlearning, we have an analogy that we use of Ugg and Og. Ugg and Og are walking through the primeval forest and they hear a twig snap behind them. Og says, saber-toothed tiger, and takes off running. Ugg turns around and says, what's that? Well, guess whose descendants we are? I'm in the process of writing a book simply about this called the Children of Og, But the fact is that from the most primordial day in our human history, the person who could identify something the fastest and react is the one who survived. And now then, we're coming and we're telling you, no, don't tell me what it is, describe it. Because your body cannot transfer the information of what it is, it can only transfer the descriptions of it. And so your conscious mind jumps to conclusions. Oh, that's a fire truck. And we say, no, set fire truck aside. Now then, tell me what you felt, tell me what you saw, and describe what made you decide it was a fire truck. So we pull all that back out.
And how many people can literally let go of a fire truck?
Oh, it's very difficult.
When they walk in here.
Yeah, it's very difficult to let go of that. It's a fire truck,
Because you perceived it.
That's right.
And it came to you.
Yeah.
So nobody put it inside your head.
That's right. Except the target, and except your conscious mind. And the problem with it is, you say, well, it's big and it's red and it's noisy. Oh, I'll bet it's a fire truck. And I'm sorry, but there are a lot of big red noisy things. And you have zeroed in on fire truck. And so your conscious mind says, Oh, then there must be a fire. Oh, there is a burning building. Oh, there are people in danger and all that. Okay. And, you know, the target may be a red car, something like that. And yet it's big, it's red, it's noisy, it's moving. Oh, it's a fire truck. Therefore, there must be a fire. And all of a sudden you're off. And actually what the customer wanted was the best selling color for their new line of cars.
Right.
And you're describing people falling out of buildings and all this other stuff
Yeah.
because you bought into that noun. Nouns will ruin a remote viewer. And
Open the chute.
that's
The
right.
Imagination comes flowing in
Oh boy, your
so
conscious mind,
rapidly
yeah.
that it is nearly impossible to shut it off.
It's very difficult. It
And
takes a
you
lot of
actually
training,
do
a lot
what
of practice.
What you're taught
Yeah.
is to set it aside.
Yeah.
And then there's no section above the line.
Yeah.
And these
And,
are all things easy to speak about
Mhm.
and very, very difficult to master.
Yeah. The rules of remote viewing are easy to talk about and easy to memorize, but they're very hard to master. In fact, the main rule of controlled remote viewing is the viewer is in charge of the session. And it takes most students a very long time to realize who the viewer is. The viewer is your subconscious mind, not you. And the subconscious mind has to be in complete charge of that session. And it's very difficult for most people to go through a session and they get red. And then they get green. No, that can't be right because it just said it's red. So they throw green away. Okay. When actually it may be a target that has something over there red and something over there green, and their subconscious is just giving the information. The subconscious is not structured in its methodology, so it's just picking out information and all that. But the conscious mind is saying, "Oh no, if it's red, then it can't be green," and so on. And another place is where the subconscious knows this is a target which has something over there that's red, something over there that's round, and something up there that's rubber, or maybe a rubbery floor or something like that. And so it passes through red, round, rubbery. And the conscious mind says, it's a ball. We're playing ball, and it's a red, round, rubbery ball. Therefore, I'll bet we're at the beach. Oh boy, I can feel, and man, there you go. And it takes a ton of practice and self-discipline to get out of the habit of doing that. In fact, with most natural psychics want to give you the answer as soon as possible. And so they zero in, they just home in on the nearest noun they can find. And so they'll get a flash of good information. Listen, natural psychics, I admire them. I envy them for their talent and their ability. Would love to be one. And but the discipline isn't there, and so they get a flash of information. They immediately name it because we're one of the children of Og. They immediately name it, and the minute they do, they set the stage for all the garbage that's going to come later. And this is one of the big reasons why psychics have such a bad name, because they won't stick around, let the subconscious pass through more information. All of a sudden they decide what the target is, and from there on, it's their imagination. Well, this is not only what we do in remote viewing, it's what we do in life. And, the remote viewing process parallels our lives very closely.
Absolutely.
And we have learned that the difference between two remote viewers is generally not a difference in ability. If they're both following the same scientific principles, they're both going to come up with generally the same accuracy, but they're going to do it in a different way according to that person's lifestyle and that person's old habits. And a person who's curious in life is going to be curious in remote viewing. A person who immediately jumps to a conclusion and reacts in life is going to do the same thing in remote viewing. And this is the reason why many times we have such a hard time taking that person and unlearning many of their life habits. And teaching a remote viewer is just as hard as learning to be a remote viewer.
And you're talking to their conscious mind who has kept them alive and has been constantly rewarded
That's
for
right.
all of their conclusions.
That's right. I always figure when I have a student that I have two students.
Absolutely.
I have the conscious student and the subconscious student as well. Plus, I have a third student, and that's the body that I have to teach the sensories and the physical reactions. We have another analogy, which is the main analogy of controlled remote viewing. Let's say you're the president of a company. It's taken you your entire life to get there. You've worked hard to get there. You're in charge, and you deserve to be the president of the company. Well, that's your conscious mind. I mean, it's taken all those experiences you've gone through and everything, and it's finally gotten to this stage where it's in charge. Okay, let's say that one day the owner of the company walks in and says, I've got a young kid that I want to teach how to run a company, and so for the next week you're working for him. What's your reaction? Like hell, that's not going to happen. And so then the owner of the company walks in with your own son. Oh, mixed emotions. I want to help this kid. I don't want him to be the president of the company this week, but I do want to help him. And so while I'm helping him learn how to be president of the company, I'll do the work for him. Okay? You see what's happening? The kid doesn't get to run the company because dad is there showing him, helping him. But let's say the kid comes up with an idea that the dad realizes, I should have thought of that years ago. What's he going to say? He's going to say, good idea. I'll take care of that next week. And so he's going to hold the kid down. At the end of the week, one of two things will happen. The kid will go to his dad and he'll say, I failed, but only because you wouldn't let me do the job. Or the kid is going to go to his dad and say, I succeeded, but only because you wouldn't let me do the job. And either way, the dad loses. Okay? The company may have run, the company may have, not suffered any at all, but the dad loses. And in controlled remote viewing, you have to let the kid run the company. And in many, many psychic methodologies using this same analogy, what happens is they decide, we're going to send the dad on vacation. We're going to send the president on vacation for a week. And so here's the kid in charge of the company, and here's the president of the company over on a beach chair in Maui, and there's his cell phone. And every few minutes, man, he calls back to this secretary or that secretary. What's the kid doing now? Well, you put him on, you stall until next week or something like that. The dad's out there running the company still. The kid just doesn't know it. And in hypnosis, they have what's called the hidden observer, the invisible observer. That in hypnosis, you give hypnotic commands and the person does it, but you give one. And so with hypnosis and with many other things, you can't make a person do what they consciously would not want to do, because the conscious mind keeps checking back in. As a highly trained CRV monitor, you can watch a hypnosis session and you'll see the person in a trance, but awake, back asleep, awake, back asleep. It's the president checking in to make sure that the company's running okay. With controlled remote viewing, we have another tactic. We put the president, the conscious mind, down on the loading docks and keep him so busy that he doesn't have time to interfere with the company. And that way the kid gets to run the company. And the incoming information, we have all of this very complex structure. And let's go back to the analogy. Here comes a box of information in on the truck. President's on the loading dock. He picks it up. He says, where do I stack this? So many times we'll say a verb goes here, a descriptor goes there, a conceptual idea goes here, a noun goes here, an emotional thing goes here. My emotions go here, but somebody at the target's emotions go there. And we have all these columns. We keep the conscious mind so busy figuring out where to stack things that he not interfering with the company, okay? And so the idea in controlled remote viewing is that we have this structure that keeps the conscious mind busy and keeps you physically busy as well. And the kid can stay in charge of the company. And so in that respect, the remote viewer, who is the kid, is always in charge. And so when a person gets really good at remote viewing, they get to where they know how to stack things immediately, and their conscious mind has time to go get in trouble and check back upstairs and everything else. And that's when we teach them the next level, which is more complex and more complex. Tasker's intent. A lot of people say that the tasker's intent is going to run the session, that the viewer wanting to please the tasker is going to find out what the tasker wants him to find, whether it's true or not. For a beginning viewer, that's often true. And so basically what's happening is the remote viewer is remote viewing the tasker to find out what the tasker wants to know, because he wants to be successfully, the viewer wants to be successful and please somebody. We train you to not go to your feedback. We train you to go to the target. We also know that what a viewer wants to get, the imagination will create. And therefore, we teach our students that the most important thing to want is the absolute truth. If you want the truth more than you want there to be aliens running around at a site, then you'll find the truth. If they are running around at the site, you'll find it. If they're not, you'll find that. If you want to know the truth more than you want to not hurt the family of the missing child who is there by saying the child is dead, you'll find the truth about the child, not what you want to find for that family. And so we teach our students that there is nothing more important than the truth, and that you've got to want that more than anything else. As you experience that, and as you make that your habit in remote viewing, it gets to where tasker's intent is nothing. You just blow past tasker's intent, and it has no effect on your session. But for an inexperienced viewer, yeah, tasker's intent is going to have an effect. And it's amazing because all the viewer gets is a bunch of numbers. And somewhere out there in the ether, there is a tasker saying, someone abducted a child and I want him found. Well, guess what the viewer is going to find? A male. And it may have been the mother that took the, but the viewer is going to find basically what the tasker wants, unless that viewer wants the truth more than anything else. You've got to care about the truth beyond every other thing. That's when you're a world-class remote viewer. And once you find the truth, you can report it. But then if you get curious about it, you're going to really be a world-class remote viewer. Yes, but I would tend to point out that there's a danger involved in putting too much faith in what you think the perception is going to be. Okay. Because that's your conscious mind expecting something. And if you can get rid of that, then the perception comes and you report it. A very dangerous part of remote viewing, not dangerous for the viewer, but dangerous for the session, is I got red, I got green, I got yellow. Oh, I think I'm going to get a traffic light. Well, guess what you're going to get? I don't care what your mind and body tell you, you're going to get a traffic light. And that anticipation of a perception is destructive to the process of relaying the truth. Okay. You have got to stay, I tell my students, you've got to be the professional village idiot. And the village idiot keeps nothing in his mind. Whatever hits his brain comes out his mouth and is completely forgotten, 1 second later, is not anticipated. And so you've got the village idiot to whom the doctor, the lawyer, the police chief, everybody else comes for advice because this is the one totally honest person in town. Mm-hmm. Right. And a remote viewer has got to be that way. The perception hits, it comes out onto the paper, and then it is gone because you're the professional village idiot. And if you sit there and anticipate what your next perception is going to be, you're not doing your job.